Thank you, Otti, for the nice introduction, and also welcome from my side. I'm very happy to be here, and of course I want to thank you for being here, from coming basically from all over the world. We heard from Helsinki, from London, from Potsdam, and from Austin. Very excited to have you here to talk about virtual production. I guess the first question I want to ask is about the current market situation in virtual production. We heard a few things from K1, how it looks like in Vancouver and North Hollywood, but how does it look like in Europe and the rest of the world? Is it characterized by a lot of small companies being super innovative and having a lot of money to experiment? Or is it more characterized by bigger companies who are not trying too much, but just a little bit? Maybe Jodi, you can talk first.
Thank you. So thank you for being here. I'm really excited to be a part of this really great panel. I would say from what we have seen, we've had lots of really big studios set up, shut down, and lots of smaller companies setting up pop-up studios in smaller venues. I think there's still a knock-on effect where a lot of the freelancers have left the industry, sadly, or the work has really slowed down. I think with the technology disruption has also caused a lot of business models to start thinking about how they're going to reshift in the new marketplace. But I think there's still a lot of innovation happening. There's still productions that are going on, even despite budgets and schedules being slashed. I think it takes a really resilient company that has strong partnerships in place to ride the wave. Anyone who's worked in the business for many, many years always knows there's crests and there's valleys, and it's being able to survive that, and that's where I think being innovative is really helpful.
We've heard a lot about disruptions in all your presentations. The strikes, we heard about COVID, and AI was also another disruption. How would you say AI has changed virtual production in the past 2 years, if at all?
Well, not as much as you might think, at least in my kind of field. There's a lot of tools where you speed up workflows that already have been around there. But there's also still a lot of research going on. So there's a lot of stuff that we currently do for pre-production, for pre-visualization and stuff like that, to speed up all those kind of things. But for the final output, there's still a certain controllability or like a lack of quality that might not actually be enough to end up on screen. So we're trying to solve those as well, of course. And in a good thing, it has triggered a bit of fear, though, in a lot of actually like students as well. When I spoke with a couple of people, they were like, "Should we still go into this one, or is it basically too late for that one?" And I said, like, no, it's not too late. There's still
good for us
stuff.
then.
Yeah. But as well, there's chances. Just like you need to learn the tools, you need to kind of understand where it's beneficial, where it's kind of hurting you. And where you can integrate to actually like, get the best kind of output in there. So yeah, it hasn't changed that much so far, but I think there will still change come, and we need to adapt to that.
Sven, what are your experiences over the past 2 years?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of afraidness regards AI. So a lot of people are afraid what's coming up there, but I think actually it opens up so many possibilities. And I think what we're currently seeing at the market, I mean, I've been now also in the US and China, UK, I visit a lot of different countries to see what's going on. I think since the strike of the actor, actually, I think this is like, at least currently, the biggest challenge for movie productions that happened, way more than AI, because AI is not there yet to fully replace the actors. But since they did the strike, basically, they showed the investors of movies that there's a new variable, basically, a new risk factor in movie production, that actors could strike anytime, and you lose a lot of money when they do. And that's why I think a lot of investors just pulled out of the movie industry and invested their money in other directions, and that's why. Yeah, still after the strike now, we have less than half of the movies from Hollywood produced. They went like from 800 down to less than 400 movies per year. And I think this still is like, the investors still looking like, okay, is it a safe area to continue to invest in the future? And yeah, when actors now saying that they might reconsider another strike, I mean, this is like a fatal sign, I think, for investors to go into this business.
Yeah.
And this is not just nothing has to do with AI. AI is just something that comes on top, and this is like often like used as an excuse, like why we're striking so on, but it's not there yet. Actually, it still will take a bit of time. And as Adrian mentioned, it's used for speeding up processes, getting fast iterations, especially when you want to be creative, see different sets, different kind of backgrounds in virtual production to really fast iterate through them and see how they feel from the lighting. So that helps, of course, a lot to be faster, but it's not like that AI is taking out all the jobs already. So it's still a long way to get there. Yeah.
So we're still in the transformation phase of it.
Yeah,
all.
totally. And everything that we see right now, it's not so much, especially in the movie industry, related to AI. It's all more related to the strike that happened.
Yeah. Ben, you also talk about the transformation from the traditional production process to the new virtual production process. And you mentioned a couple of times the fact that in the traditional production process, of course, you fix it in post, and now you fix it in pre-production. My question is, during this transformation time where we're still learning and experimenting, how do we fix the problem that sometimes we cannot fix something in pre-production? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we survive this transformational phase until we understand, okay, in pre-production, we just have to think of the workflow in a completely different way?
Well, so this is not pertaining to AI. This is a separate thing.
No, okay. This is the workflow.
Right.
Question.
Well, it's very exciting because obviously, I have a very naive and very limited sort of understanding of virtual production. But it seems like as a person who sort of worked in animation and worked in asset creation, we were inheriting a lot of decisions that were made by people that didn't necessarily sort of understand the technology. Clearly they did, but decisions were made in production due to financial constraints, and I think that there was this attitude that it would all be sort of smoothed out. I'm very pleased to see that sort of the creative CG animator types are now sort of being put in front of the production. And I don't know the value of all that in the end, and I think the technology is changing just very quickly, in virtual production. This has all just been happening just within the past few years, really, and then AI's impact. I think, there's these obvious things about making images with AI, and then I think that there's this underlying things that AI or automation is going to do to the production pipeline with managing productions, with supervising, and all of the organization that I think is a little less visible, but I still, I still feel like there are going to be some knock-on effects, down the road from that. So, and I've seen clearly you made a film in just a couple days. That's just this extraordinary, I don't know how much it costs, but clearly the labor was not millions and millions of dollars, right?
Less than $10, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I have seen some other films that are, $130 to make, a 10-minute AI-generated film, and you're right. The matting and some of the specific things does not necessarily hold up, but I do think it's probably going to in the future. I think it's evolving in that direction. And as production costs drop and the cost of spectacle, when you can do anything, when anybody can do anything, I wonder what we will value in entertainment, in the future, In virtual production, what I like about virtual production is that it sort of removes all of these sort of impediments to production, and then you can get back to directing actors on the stage and get back to really capturing those performances and people, it almost goes back to, the real directing of people and not necessarily sort of wrangling a lot of technology, because you have people, like these guys who are setting it all up so you walk in there and you're on the ship, and the ocean is already happening, so.
But doesn't that change, specifically the directing part, when we now know that Sven can just prompt the video and then that's it? Isn't that going to change completely?
If I can answer that, I'm very sure like in 10 years we will look back at production and we will feel like a very old way how we currently produce movies. I imagine it like in a way where we have like something like Netflix or whatever, a platform, but movies are generated on the fly, specifically personalized on yourself. And in this domain, actually, it's very hard to compete. And I would invite anyone to try like an experiment, like hearing like AI-generated music, for example. I did this now for more than half of a year, just mainly hearing only AI music. And what you will learn by that, or what I learned from that, is basically the valuation. What you've also mentioned is drastically changing regards music, because usually when I work, I generate the lyrics and the music on the fly, depending on what I want to hear, and then I have always new songs. When there's something good in it, I just save it for my playlist later. But you lose a lot of the value of music, actually. And I think the same will happen with movies at the same speed. Like if you have TV dramas or series that you can't continue, basically, then they have no value because you can't continue to watch them. Or if they go into frustrating directions which you don't like and you can't change that, then basically the value will be drastically different. And I think this is something that will happen over the next years. And I think we all should remember the moment we have now, because I'm very glad that I could work on sets with real actors doing VFX. Going through all those areas and really remember those moments that we now have. Because I think in 10 years we will look back and it feels like an old telephone where you have to dial numbers like this, how we currently produce movies.
I agree. I think that's going to be the future. This morning, I attended your workshop, Jodi and Adrian's workshop on virtual production. And Jodi, you said something that I had to write down. You said, I thought this was interesting and very true. It is the story that is driving the technology. So at the end of the day, it's about what do you want to tell, and then you ask the question, how do we go about and tell that? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, all of the technology, we talk about them as being tools in the toolbox. I don't think you're going to remove the human element from storytelling. We've been there since the beginning of mankind, womankind. And I think it's really important to just look at tools like AI as another tool to speed up processes, do things that are boring and things that we don't want to do, so we can get to the creativity. That's what makes humans so amazing, is because we are creative and we can tell all these stories that are unique to us. And I think we're living through a really exciting time where there's massive disruption and massive change, but also massive opportunities to make a difference, to have a voice, and to be able to use that voice to tell stories that are unique to you, and also that would be very fascinating to other people, where, you know, it's being more and more democratized from systems that are in place. And I've lived through quite a few different changes in the industry where it's very top-down and you have very limited access to where suddenly you can go get an iPhone and make your own film and send it out on YouTube and 5,000 people see your film. And speaking of AI, there was a young man here in Germany who made an AI film that I was so impressed with, and it wasn't that he used AI to make the film, but it was the fact that he had foundational film knowledge. You could see in the creation of the film the structure, that he understood story, he understood what a protagonist was, a 3-act structure, and that comes from education. That comes from a traditional foundation of filmmaking. So I think it's important to hang on to those traditional elements of storytelling and training and education so that you can tell the stories you want to tell. But it's the learning the new technology that applies to that in so many different ways, because we've got lots of different ways we can tell stories now. And that's what I meant.
And
if I can be just shortly like the AI devil in this round. Nature has released a study now where they benchmark creativity, humans against AI. And since the beginning of this year, basically, AI was always far behind the humans. And now in the latest studies, basically, AI has surpassed already creativity on all measurement things, basically, that we have. And I think all the things you mentioned, like editing skills, narration, and so on, are all things basically you can also train to an AI system. And I think there will always be like human-made movies still exist, but the big, especially the big Hollywood stuff, is that stuff that you can easily create with AI, because those are stories that are meant to reach to a lot of people at the same time. And stories that are very specific for single persons, I think it's more challenging to achieve those, but those are also not the target of Hollywood, actually, like very niche productions. But finding a story that resonates with as many people as possible to get your investment back from the investors is like the reason behind it. This is something that is the easiest thing to solve with AI, and I think especially humans are very bad in making movies. If you see how many movies we're creating every year, how our success rate is, if you really I think we humans, we have a very, very strong bias towards us, like that we are like superior across everything. And I think AI is now challenging this a lot. Yeah.
But AI can produce a lot of bad films too.
Yes, of course, yes.
And I was going to say,
it will be way more.
Sometimes I was also going to say that it's not just about a marketing or a business model to make money, that what values something that is good or bad. And until AI becomes sentient and feels, I think humans still have a huge and critical evaluation, and having those things to be able to judge. We have millions of apps and channels and different things that we love, and I just don't think that that's going to go away. But it is the human that's training the AI, or I always say please and thank you to my AI, always.
I don't. Which is going to be bad in the future. So if I'm away, then you know what happened. No, but so the story is what's driving technology. I would agree. But on the other hand, I'm also guessing that the technology gives us more opportunities to tell the stories in different ways. So I want to know from you, Adrian, how does the technology actually impact the story on set? Maybe the director has new ideas while seeing all that is possible, not only on set, but also in the pre-production part, but mostly on set, like what is happening.
It's fun because it becomes like an on-location shoot, a controllable on-location shoot, which is quite interesting. So the request, like move the sun to the right, not really happening in real life. But it is basically, this is when people actually understand what is needed or what is possible in the kind of frame we set on what we make possible. Then it starts like playing around. It's fun when you do like workshop with people who never touched the technology before, because then just for like in-camera effects now, you start just playing around like very subtly, like, oh, could we, change the color of the curtain? And then, wait an hour, and then it's like, oh, we need clouds there, and I want a spaceship coming from here landing there. And so it's just like opens up the idea, and you can literally see the flip, the switch flip when people actually get the new kind of idea in there. It's not for everybody. This is also like a totally fine thing. And the second thing I really love about having the new tech on the block is that we can be, as young people, be on the set with the people who've been there like years and years and years and years. It's not everybody's happy about this one, and you still have to prove yourself every single time. But it is basically lowering this barrier of entry quite quickly, because we adapt quite quickly to this stuff usually.
Any other experiences?
I think with the new tech, it also offers new opportunities for people to get into the business faster, because there's such huge skills gaps. Traditionally you go through film school and you come out, you might be a runner for a couple of years and then work your way up through the department. And I think with the new head of department roles, the new technologies, the transferable skills, that means that getting a traditional film school degree means you can go work in broadcast, you can work in games, you can work in live events, because a lot of these skills using these real-time technologies are starting to cross over. And I think that's really exciting, because you have choice. And that education means more than just a specific job role or something. Now that means there's also very specific job roles that we're looking for that have necessary skill sets, but I think also there's a lot of opportunity for young, hungry, curious people to get into the business and be molded and shaped by companies and businesses who are really eager to raise talent up in this new space.
Yeah, and I think usually from a producer side, they're always looking at ways to be more efficient. I mean, that's obvious, and therefore they're carving for young people that know those technologies, how to use them, how to integrate them into their productions. I know there's some like older productions which are still like try to do like very like old school filmmaking, but a lot of the newer ones, I remember it was a movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, where basically just a very small VFX team has proven that you can create a massive Hollywood-like movie with a lot of VFX. If you plan it well and you know your tools, it can be quite cheap in comparison to everyone else. And I think those cases, they prove very well that if you are young and you're well educated and you can bring benefit to productions, you can very fast get to big Hollywood sets, actually, because they're looking for that.
Their LED wall was a TV screen. Literally. And it was amazing.
It's pretty dope.
Ben, you talked about the history of animation. Looking at all the case studies that we were just able to experience, would you say that we've reached a certain endpoint of what's possible in animation, or is there something that you're still missing, that you think is still lacking, looking at the history and where we are right now?
I don't think we're at the end point of animation, and I'm not sure I know what is missing, but I do think that there is potential moving forward. You know, the virtual production, as I understand it, you know, there's a lot more engineering, and as you alluded to, I think that there's this design methodology that has entered into production, right? Like you can improve it, you can change it on the fly, and I do think that, as I understand, students have had that design methodology is much more a sort of featured component of curricula anywhere, you know, and I guess sometimes I think the difference between maybe art and design is art is showing me something I've never seen before, and design is taking something and sort of improving it, and I know that that's an incomplete definition, but I did think about that, as you said, move the sun and change the curtains and those sorts of things. I mean, to me, I feel like sometimes when I'm doing animation, I'm looking for those serendipitous mistakes. I'm okay with it. And I like to work on paper too, and I love it when I spill coffee on it, you know, because it makes it somehow more authentic. It's less perfect, but it has that, there's a word called aura, which is the quality of a physical object that makes it unique, you know. So, and I've worked in game design also, and games don't necessarily always have that. They have this quality of having been produced by a team and, you know, very sort of thought out in terms of all that. So, you know, in virtual production offers so many new things that we can do, and I don't think that we've really engaged with it, because it's like we're using the Unreal Engine. You can program in trigger boxes, you know, and I don't see that sort of gamification, the game design qualities that could be. I mean, you can have it. You can walk up to a door and the virtual production, it'll open, you know, just when you get near it. And I'd be very interested to see how maybe that sort of enters into the conversation of production, as you said, and personalizing it, you know, in different ways. And but I also have to wonder, you know, I'm going back to all these points that you mentioned before, you know, and thinking about maybe this is the end of mass media. Are we going to go to theaters anymore, right? Because it's been this sort of statistical game, like how can we make something that appeals to the most people at the same time? And maybe AI is good at that, right? It's a statistical model that's trying to predict not just what I said, my own bias, but sort of the bias of everybody, you know? So, and then I thought of the word photoplay. So when movies first came along, they called them photoplays because they didn't have a word for movie yet. It was a play that they photographed. And in fact, if you look at movies, they still say that at the bottom, any resemblance to people in photoplay. I do feel like that we're at this place with AI where we're calling it a movie in the same way that we used to call movies photoplays. We haven't quite figured out what this new thing is, but you know, it's an interesting time. These two technologies, I think, have the potential to come together, especially when it becomes generative, when it becomes real time, you know. But I have to wonder, will it be a shared experience, or will we go back to, you know, looking at our little praxinoscope or whatever? Will it all be individualized? So anyway. So I don't think I answered your question at all.
You did, and you didn't. I want to open up the discussion to the live audience and also to the audience who is online. So if you have any questions through social media, then please do so. But I have one more question, so think about the questions that you might have. I want to know, besides the obvious job descriptions that we've all heard about, and also K1 went through the different departments and what is needed, I want to know what skills are needed to make it in the virtual production industry. Is there, question mark. Maybe you all can answer. Adrian, you go first.
People skills are fairly important, which I wouldn't have thought, right? No. So basically, you have so many different people from all backgrounds on site, so kind of interfacing between them is like requires a certain level of just understanding and being open for why would you do this thing the certain way. So that's basically one really important one on set. And then it's kind of like being able to stay relaxed under pressure. Yeah, if there's a big shoot and everybody's waiting on you because something failed on the wall.
Poor you.
Yeah, well, it's fine. It's my fault. No, basically, my job at the supervisor is kind of to gather all those nervous people and tell them, like, give us 3 minutes, we're going to be back up and running, and then just stand with your point and not have everybody run behind the technicians, behind the brain bar, and then just like, hey, you ready yet? Still not ready yet? And so on. So yeah, this also requires like...
So people skills and working under pressure.
Yeah, and then creativity.
Two very good skills.
Creativity. Okay.
I would also add to the fact that, look, film is very hierarchical, right? You have roles, you have departments, you work your way up the chain, you've got heads of departments. And it's important to understand that, which is where the people skills come into play, to know who I'm supposed to talk to, when, and who not to, when. But I think it's also important, and this is a really great opportunity while you're studying, to try, to fail, to work in multiple different roles, to understand what each other is doing. This was a skill that I learned very quickly when I started making my own films. It was like, oh, what does that department do? And what does that department do? And as a producer, what it did was it helped inform my decision-making and the questions that I would ask and anticipate the needs. Because working in film, you're a problem solver, right? Yes, you're creative. Yes, you're artistic. And yes, you're there to tell a story. But you're there to solve a problem. And the more that you can do that for production that saves time and saves money will help you to work often, and again, and again, and again. And so the people skills, being able to get along with people really well, and obviously knowing your job, but knowing what everybody else, their roles are as well, will help make your life a lot easier, I think, and make the experience really enjoyable. I think virtual production also speeds up the process of the film, because traditional film, there's a lot of sitting around, you have to wait until things get set up, and lights and so forth. By doing a lot of the stuff in previs, allows that shoot time become much shorter, much more efficient, people get the jobs done, and I think working well under pressure is a really core skill to have in this new future of work.
I'm also hearing curiosity.
Yes,
oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And never stop learning. I think I said that in the workshop. You know, school is only one part on your journey. You will continue to learn as you get out, and it's a really important skill to have.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with the previous ones. So I would add like setting goals that are, or challenges that are bigger than everything that you have done before. Like something that is very huge, where you think it's impossible to do, and just try it. And if you fail, you have learned a lot by it anyway. But really, like, especially when you're a student, try to get very big goals and try to make them happen. And often, I think you will find out that it's not impossible and that you can do it. But this is often something that you will not recognize if you not even try it, because you think it's impossible. So just clear this word out of your mind and just try it. Trying and learning. And also I would add, like, sounds a bit like maybe boring, but like software development. I can strongly recommend everyone, basically, because you learn very much like logical thinking by it. And also the great thing is you learn how to automate a lot of things that usually are tedious, repeating tasks that just take a lot of time. So even if it's very annoying to learn programming, I know that I've learned a lot of different development languages and I always hated it. But in the end, I loved it because it made me so much faster in everything that I'm doing, and I'm applying this to every principle.
But do we need that now with AI?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is you still need to know like logical thinking, how to build like blocks to understand if the ideas that are suggested by AI are basically like a good way and efficient, and if they're like an applicable solution for your problem. Because often AI comes up with a lot of different ideas, but finding a way that is really efficient, it's not so easy actually, and not just having the one solution that might work somehow, but one of the best solutions on the market, because this will differentiate us from others that basically also try to find just a solution.
If I may, before Ben, I was going to say, I asked one of your faculty this very question this morning. How do you assess your students on the outputs that they're turning in for their assessment? And if they make it with AI, how do you evaluate what they're learning with? I know you giggle, because I don't know. It's okay, I won't
it's a challenge.
I won't. I know.
It
is, but he made a really good point about this. The critical thinking skills, but also if I ask you to change, oh, this is really great, but can you change it day for night? How might I do that? So if they didn't learn the traditional skills of being able to be adaptable in that space and just relying on a tool to do the job for them, then it means they haven't done the job well. So I think it's important, like this programming language and learning outside of just the frame of what your box is will help you to be able to meet that remit. Because people will often ask you to change things, particularly on the fly, with no extra money and no extra budget. So you have to figure that out, and having these tool sets to help you do it faster is really, really important. Sorry, Ben.
Maybe going off a couple of things that I heard earlier. First of all, I'm terrible at coding and type. I'm a bad typist. So, but you know, I encourage my students. So Unreal's a good example. It underpins a lot of what's going on, and obviously seeing some of the technology on screen, it's just like, how do I even get my hands on that camera? Unreal is free. It has a wonderful learning environment. So read the manual. And if your curiosity, sometimes they can be a little dry, but I promise these programs want you to learn them. Like, they are very often free. And if you can just get good at sort of slowly going through the documentation, and you can get good at Unreal on your own, absolutely. They make it very easy for you. And that kind of skill is going to complement anything else. Of course, going to a program like this, where you can get your hands on actual hardware technology and see how that works, is really going to help. But these two things are coming together. And so the software, and you saw I saw the different AI sort of components that you used in your film when you made, and all of these things are brand new. And I know that you had to figure these things out on your own. And I don't know if there's a manual, sometimes not. But you know, it's the barrier to learning these things is very easy. I might suggest maybe not going to YouTube first, because there can be a lot of misleading information. I see my students go down the wrong path with these things. So. Just that, you know, I think that people who have had success in all of the industries I've ever worked with around digital, around games, around film, are just very curious. They will download it, they will dig in there, and they'll start experimenting and failing and messing around as soon as possible, and they'll build just a little bit of knowledge. That's all you need. Because if you find a mentor, like these people here on stage, they're going to really help you move very quickly, but they need you to be able to speak that underlying language, you know, so you can contribute to the conversation.
Maybe if I can also add just one more thing, like using large language models for learning is also like something I can recommend, and also to challenge yourself. Like if you have some idea and you think it's a very great idea, just put in, you are now like my most biggest opponent, and you always hate all ideas you hear, but you're arguing with me, and then just type in your ideas and you get basically destroyed, and then you can argue like to see, are there maybe roadblocks, and you can try to figure, can you make it happen that the AI basically believes that your idea is still good after this whole, but there
so if you have masochistic tendencies, then that's what you should do.
but those are good approaches to challenge your ideas first.
Great idea.
And often it's very hard to find people where you can challenge ideas. And those tools, they give you possibilities to learn. Also, like if you say, don't give me the answer, but describe it in a way that I have to solve it, and you provide just hints for me step by step. There's a lot of cool ways how to learn
I like that.
and be faster, basically, to get more knowledge. And I can totally recommend anyone using those tools, not just for as like a Wikipedia, but really to learn new things as well, and challenge yourself with those tools.
So I hear, say please and thank you. Just say please and thank you. Just say please and thank you. That's all I was going to say, so it gives you the answers that you want. Keep it sweet.
I need to change that. So I hear a lot of different skills, but nothing really out of the ordinary, right? It's just common sense, I guess. So that's good news for us. Adaptive. I think that's a great term, adaptive. Okay, so let's open this up. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and let us know. Kendrick.
Hi, thank you for the nice insights. I'm not sure if this is the right talk for that, but the question just came through my mind. In your presentations, you all talked a lot about big international high-end Hollywood productions, but I just thought about the German movie landscape, which is often described as boring and always the same. But do you think that virtual production is a chance to improve that German movie landscape and made it more diverse and maybe make it interesting for the international market?
Yeah, just jumping right on that. Yeah, definitely. German broadcasters start to put more money into certain productions, so we get bigger scale productions in Germany. The Swarm was one of the biggest one last year, I think. It turned out fairly well. There's new ones in development, and they very much look at virtual production. So basically, the idea is how to streamline the entire thing, how to accommodate funding from different countries and different environments and stuff like that. And just, for example, being able to shoot, I don't know, Switzerland in Luxembourg or something like that. So you can basically mix and match the money pots perfectly fine in that sense. So yeah, it definitely helps. It's a bit slower to adopt than other countries, but it is moving in this direction because of, well, budgetary cuts also in broadcast across the media industry, and it helps save money. So this is kind of a win-win situation when you bring in something that enhances the creativity for a given budget, with basically still basically reducing the overall overhead. Yeah, feel free to add if you want.
Well, I mean, I'm not from this market, but what I can say is you've got a facility now up on the 3rd floor to where you can make a huge impact in the industry. Don't think that you have to wait until you graduate and you get into the commercial sector to start making a difference. You have the tools and the facilities upstairs to start making stories and start sorting out the tech and figuring out how it works. And you can make some really amazing projects that would fit in the commercial sphere quite easily. That tech is no different than stuff you've seen, and Adrian set up many stages. And Unreal is free, so it's just coming together and going in and making things, and that's what attracts finance and moves an industry forward.
And also we might have like subsidiaries for film by beginning of next year, which makes it a bit easier to get bigger budgets into projects in Germany. And then also I think, especially due to Netflix putting more money into the market, we have now more and more also like German shows that had money to prove that we are actually also able to write good stories and good movies, or serial TV drama, like, I don't know, How to Sell Drugs Online Faster. I love the show, for example, or like Mindful Murdering, or what. I mean, I think we can do it, and we proved it already. But building up trust in the market that we're also good storytellers, this is something that is now coming more and more into sense. But I think Netflix was a very important step for that, to show that not only our old landscape is able to do it, but also like putting new people together.
And have trained crew.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
They come to countries where there's trained crew available. So that's why the education is such an important component of the filmmaking industry.
Okay, great. Another question? Lucas, please.
Yeah, Adrian, thanks so much for a very great and interesting presentation. So you started your career in Stuttgart, and then you traveled around the world. You saw a lot of different things. And what do you think, why is virtual production and so international thing? And what does Germany, what role does Germany play in this big game? And also, what do you think, what are the difference between the countries in the world?
Oh yeah, well, it's massively different. It's fun because kind of the mentality of countries flows into the film production. I got to set up, for example, a couple of a stage in Mexico. It's a bit more like free, right? So you build the LED directly on the floor. That's totally fine. You just do a bit more run and gun and so on. Works as well. So that's quite fun. Then there's very streamlined and very unionized things in the US. When we go there, I'm technically not allowed to touch certain things because I'm not in a union and stuff like that. And I need to work in non-union stages because I can't do this around there. And then, for example, in Hungary, it's more like everybody pulls together and gets up and running. So it's really nicely around the world. And Germany kind of is, we have a really good engineering background, and we're kind of famous for that one. So that's going to be super helpful. And it actually is quite nice when they say like, oh, cool, the German engineers here, so it's going to be fine. Like, all right, let's see how we get there. But it's also like setting a tone. I mean, the Hyperbole in Munich was one of the first stages in the world at a large scale operating on Hollywood level. They got calls from the US directors and so on to come over to Germany to shoot right there, which is awesome. And they now do Hollywood movies as well, constantly. So it is basically helping quite a bit as well to move it forward. And I think the German expertise is there. And there's like a lot of, it's one of the most like forward-thinking countries in terms of education. Basically setting up this entire thing around there, investing into the hardware, investing into the students and the teachers and so on, setting up conferences, bringing people together. UK is a bit doing it the other way around, relying on kind of government-funded objects and projects and so on. But it is kind of nice, yeah. Yeah,
one thing to add, maybe something you have to keep in mind. When you live in Germany, usually you know all the stuff that is going on in Germany, and everything from the other border looks better and feels better. Like everything you see from the US and China, it's always like, oh my God, what they're doing there. But if you're there, they have the same mentality. So they look at Germany and they see, oh my God, what they're doing there in Germany. So it's the same thing. It's very, very weird. So like the grass is greener on the other side all the time. And you can be proud to be in this education system of Germany, learned all those things. So you don't have to come up with a mentality to the set that you are from Germany and in America they do crazy stuff, and in China, because in Germany we also do a lot of cool productions that are massive. And I mean, even like the beginning of movie production, most of the technology was invented in Germany and then later went to the US. Or deepfakes, the first deepfakes like more than 13 years ago have been implemented in Germany by research institutes. It's like often a lot of technology comes from Germany and we just forget that. But everyone else in the other countries, they see that and they know that and they're like, oh my God, what they're doing that in this country. So we can be very proud of all the technologies that we have developed here.
Just an anecdote to that. We, in the beginning of the studio, it was COVID, so it was really difficult to talk to other people around the world, and it felt like everybody has like no problems whatsoever, just moving along, and it's awesome. And then we set up a call with INM, which was cool. I mean, it was like perfect for me. I never had to talk. I got to talk to the big people over there, and it was awesome because well, it was really reassuring for us because they joined the call with about 12 people. We were 2, and they're like, "Oh, is the rest of your team not joining?" We're like, well, we are complete. And then it was like incredible because they were really amazed that we actually managed to do like productions that look still really, really good and like succeed on a big level and so on. And then, since then also like it optimized over there. The crews got smaller, more lean, more efficient and stuff like that. So it's like a ping pong match around the world.
I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, there's a question. Wait 1 second. Okay.
So, first of all, thank you for being here. And my question goes to a thing which Sven said in his presentation. An interesting move he pulled when he showed the images of Jurassic Park, supposedly Jurassic Park. You showed like 2 images. One on the one side, you said like, oh yeah, this was made with AI. Not talking about the other one. And then you asked like, oh, did you see that this is AI? And I thought it was really interesting to see the reactions of the group. So like, for example, everyone was like, yeah, of course I see it's AI. And then you said like, oh, but the other one is also AI. And I think this is a problem which we at the moment have with VFX, with virtual production, and with AI, that sometimes the decision we make, once we know it's VFX, it's AI, it's CGI, it's virtual production, that sometimes even if we don't know it by seeing it, but just knowing it by knowing it, that this might be not well received. How do you think this perception of the society will change or stay in the future?
That's why I love such experiments and why I put it in there to challenge you. If you would create like a big Hollywood movie now, and you write afterwards that everything was created with AI, I mean, you can imagine what kind of sales price you will get. I mean, it's basically worthless. You can't get any money, no theaters will show it. And currently, the perception of the people is that everything that is created from AI is basically for free, even if there's human work involved in it. But currently, the level of basic value of everything that is created is basically very, very low. So everyone in the group, I wouldn't recommend anyone putting AI on their movies or even like sounds, because you're devaluating your product a lot by using it at the moment. I think it will be still like a progress where people have to learn like differences. And also I can imagine like it will be way more like a shared experience where you have communities building like own models and training own models, own stories, they share them with each other. So you can have like let's say you have a very crazy playlist which generates a lot of very crazy content, and you can share it with me, so I can generate also new movies in the kind of same style. And I think what I see now is also all the image generators that are online. It's more like a very huge community. People training own data sets, they're sharing it with others, they create specific styles. And the same, I think, will happen with movies as well, that you have some editing styles or some like visual styles, some color grading styles. People will train them even like on their own machines, share them. And it will be, I think, a complete different experience how to watch movies in the future, because, I mean, in the end, I think we will always want like to have a shared experience, because a lot of people, they're carving for something that they can share with others, that they have like a similar feeling that they can discuss. So there will be like those big IPs like Star Wars or something where you can create something from the universe, but maybe the stories, they will diverge a bit depending on your background. But you will have to create like some IPs that are basically discussable for multiple people. And then, of course, you also have all this live stuff going on as well, which is very hard to replace with AI, like in the music business and so on. And even there, if you ask yourself, let's say you go to a venue, and basically there's just music coming from the speakers. What value has this venue basically? And just by placing a DJ there, so you just have a person there on a podest, and even if it's the same music, but there's a person, I think it's like curated in some way with the DJ, already the value is way higher. And so like currently when you add some human elements to something, the value automatically rises quite a lot for your product. And I think it will take quite a while and it will be impressive. Maybe it could be end up that basically AI is generating movies, but they don't have any value anymore. So all the main stuff you can just watch, and then it's just common sense that you can watch any movie or any kind of stuff that you want at every time. That would also mean that you don't have any like limitation of this product in the market anymore. And this could lead to like, okay, if I can watch any like series for all the time, continue it, that maybe after some weeks you don't want to watch it because there's no shortage in any like of content. So you say, okay, I like to go out more with friends, do partying, do other things, which enjoys you because the other part don't have such amount of value anymore. And also with movie productions, just to conclude, it's the same if you have more TV shows running, of course the value of all the TV shows also drops. And I think this will be changing massively with more content now.
I hope that answered your question. We only have time for 1 or 2 more questions, so please use this time. Elisabeth, and then I think there's one over via social media as well. Maybe we can do that quickly.
Hi, yeah. So I have a question about, I think, directed to Adrian. I don't know. But yeah, like I have been hearing, like virtual production, it has a lot of restrictions, disadvantages. You cannot like be very flexible. Yeah, it's a lot of budget, a lot of money, resources. Also because of the electricity and so something like that. So my question is, how big role is actually virtual production going to play? Because like AI, isn't like virtual production just like a little step that we could theoretically like just skip and focus more on AI? What is the reason we should still focus on virtual production and learning it?
Yeah.
Try to answer
it as quickly as possible.
Sorry. I want to get one more question in there.
Appreciate this. No, no, it is quite. It feels quite restrictive. So we point out the challenges, so you're not going to fall into pitfalls on set. Because if you set it up properly and actually let the people know the stuff, it's not as restrictive as it sounds in the first thing. Actually, it kind of elevates the stuff because when you shoot on green screen, when you shoot on stuff like that, you have way more restriction in terms of your post budget. You can't maybe move the camera because it doesn't fit the budget. You have to tracking. You have kind of all those other limitations that come from that side. So there's an area where virtual production works very well, and there's areas where it's not just suited for that thing. I think it's a step to further kind of developments and so on. It might not be fully replaced in any time soon. But it might be reduced, more efficient, more lean in that sense. And I think AI needs to be more controllable to actually like play a big impact into film production, because especially in moving content, it's not consistent about time. We have like changing faces and stuff like that. So that's an issue still. So both of them have to kind of adapt in a further sense to actually be replaced by one another. And you still want to have talent. So it's still movie stars, still people, still kind of your heroes sell the product. So as long as you have that one, I'm not completely perfect in AI, we're going to need to have them in front of LED.
I appreciate the brevity. I hope that answered your question, Elisabeth. And one last question via social media.
So is it possible that Unreal becomes chargeable? And if this would be the case, how much would it disrupt the virtual production industry?
It already is chargeable now. No, they changed their payment structure. So technically, if your company makes over 1 million in revenue, you're going to have to buy seats for your Unreal licenses, which comes to about 1,800 a year per seat. It's not really disrupting the virtual production flow, because if you make above 1 million revenue and have like 8 artists, that's 8,000 something, or like a bit more than that, which is from the actual million chunk fairly manageable in that sense. And they really aim to actually keep it usable. So they're not going to like raise it up to 5, 10, 12K, because then everybody's like, well, let's use Unity then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on Yes? No? Okay. Then thank you very much for the question. So I guess I get to ask the last question, and this, of course, goes to everyone. What would you say is the #1 takeaway for our students here? It's obviously a conference from and for the students, so we're all wondering, okay, where are we heading towards? What's the takeaway for us? And I want to start with Jodi, because you come from the educational, with an educational background, and also at Final Pixel you are in the silo of the academy perspective. So what do we need to...
Well, I'm going to pick up what Sven said about don't be afraid to experiment, based on a conversation you and I had last night, which was don't be afraid to ask the question. I think as young people, you're still exploring, confidence still needs to be built, and you're afraid to ask somebody how to do something because you're afraid they're going to say no. And if that's the worst thing that happens, you're going to be okay. So that's how you stay culturally relevant, that's how you stay curious, that's how you stay innovative, is to ask people that are in that expert space, go on LinkedIn, watch, YouTube people who are, really making waves and doing amazing things, and ask them, say, hi, I'm here, I want to do what you do. How do I get started? Where do I go? What things do I need to be reading or watching or learning? And I think that is probably a really big indicator of how you will act in the future, is by gaining that confidence and not being afraid of somebody just telling you no. If they do tell you no, next. Go ask somebody else, because I guarantee you there will be people out there, much like the people on this panel, who are very willing to help you get to that next level, because there were people that helped us as well. And I think that's really, that's what I would say would be a takeaway.
Nice. Thank you. Ben?
Well, I think the big takeaway among this group is that the technology is all around you and ready to go, so there is no impediment if you're interested in virtual production. And as she alluded to, like, I'd be very happy to field any questions from anybody who's interested in these things. I would also say is not to underestimate, your own sort of your background. You probably grew up with games, you grew up with technology, you have a different sort of take on it and an impression of it, and that is influencing the direction that these things are going. We typically make content for people younger than ourselves, you know what I mean? So, just to remember that there's a lot of sort of hidden things that you have that have a lot of value in this situation that you may not recognize.
That's good. Thank you. Sven?
Yeah, I would say, like, always try to stay as much as possible outside of your comfort zone. When you're inside your comfort zone, you will not learn anything. And basically, as more you can push you outward of this zone, you will learn new stuff, you will be experimental, you will fail and whatever, but this will really make you learn new stuff. So comfort zone is basically like a dead end, and you should always try to push you outside of that. Even if it not sound very comfortable, but if you anticipate that and you really start loving, like, staying outside of comfort zones, then it's more like a challenge, and you will really love and enjoy the stuff you're doing, and you will build confidence by your own.
Sounds exhausting, but probably true.
Fun.
Adrian.
Yeah. Also, watch left and right, right? So it's not just one thing that's the end-all being. We had discussions about why is broadcast better than film and the other way around. That's not the case. We can learn from each industry out there. And then if you have games, you have VFX, you have AI and all that stuff out there, like, be curious. It's really, really interesting. And well, I'm not really afraid to say when I don't know anything. So if I have questions, I'm just like, hey, let's have a quick chat. How would you do that? Why not? Yeah, you don't have to know everything, and you don't have to pretend to know everything. There's really cool people out there who, help in every single way they can. So that's fun.
Yeah, that sounds like beautiful closing statements from all of you. I want to thank you very much again for being here and presenting your insights. Adrian, Jodi, Sven, Ben, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for your attention. And that is it for this talk on virtual production. Thank you.
Thank you.